We have a great lineup of speakers today, so without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce our first speaker, who is Kito Delgado, and he is a sales leader who helps deliver solutions to organizations that attract and retain top talent. While following the Department of Labor and IRS standards, he's been able to deliver solutions, as I said, and attract and retain top talent. He was a student in college where he earned a full scholarship to Northwestern University. Very, very impressive. His passion lies with inspiring others. It's exactly what we're talking about today, to push themselves towards their goals and motivate them to share their stories and to spark that change that we're talking about today. He lives in Schenectady County, Niskayuna, with his wife and his 5-year-old daughter. Let's give him a big round of applause and welcome up to the podium.
Good evening. How we doing? Good. Now, Assemblyman, thank you for the introduction. But I promise you I will not be talking to you about payroll services and the IRS and employee retention. That is what I do by day. But one thing I want to tell you, in case no one's ever told you, is that you have a story to tell. We all have a story to tell, and that's really what I'm going to be talking about tonight. But before I get to that, I was always taught that you always start everything with a little bit of gratitude. So I want to just thank William for putting this event on. Let's give him a round of applause. I want to thank all of you for finding a robbery to come out for tonight. I want to thank my parents. I want to thank my extended aunties for coming. And last but certainly not least, it's a school night. And my wife, she's a teacher. And then my beautiful 5-year-old daughter, Melina, she has pre-K tomorrow. So it's a late night for them. So thank you guys for coming. So tell your story, right? So what I'm going to be doing is telling you a little bit of my story, but then also sharing the stories of others along the way that hopefully will eventually inspire you to tell your story. And however that path may look, whether it's in your careers, whether it's your personal life, whether it's making a transition, whether it's just to make a change in how you approach your life, I just hope it helps you along the way. So born and raised in Schenectady, went to a very small school, Notre Dame Bishop Gibbons. And I played basketball, but I really excelled at football. So the first story I want to talk about is how I was a big fish in a small pond. So one day, my high school coach, he came to he came to my parents and he said, "Hey, I think Kito is pretty good at football. I think he should go to this event over the weekend." I was like, "Okay, sure." I didn't know what I was doing. But my parents trusted him. They wrote the check. I went to this event at Holy Cross. And all I know is, he said, "Kito, just do your absolute best at whatever you have to do. Run around." So they put me through all these different drills. I had no idea what I was doing. Run the 40-yard dash. Do the bench press. I was like, "Coach, I've never done the bench press in my life." He was like, "Yeah, don't worry about that." Long story short, I was actually at a showcase. They call it a showcase, a combine that allows college coaches to watch you play. And that was my breakthrough. I ended up getting a number of scholarships, and that's how I ended up first at Boston University. That's a different story, but then I ended up transferring to Northeastern University. But the first thing I want to talk about highlight is the fact that I was prepared for that opportunity. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just trusted my coach. I went and I performed. So the first thing I want to say is it's better to be prepared for an opportunity that never happens than to not be prepared for an opportunity when it does show up. And I just want to say that I was prepared for that opportunity because of that, I was able to go to college, earn a full scholarship, graduate with no debt, have a lot of life lessons, play my favorite sport. So now how does this all tie in to playing sport, to telling your story? The reason why I wanted to share that backdrop is because my athletics, that's always played a big part of my story. And when I graduated high school or college, and I didn't, like 99.9% of college students did not go pro, I really struggled with that because I identified myself as just an athlete. And now here I was like, wow, I'm no longer playing sports. What am I? So yeah, I got married, I had a child, I was a sales career, everything was fine, but I just wasn't fulfilled. There was just something off. And what ended up happening was, just wasn't the healthiest eater, wasn't working out anymore. I never really liked working out to begin with. I only worked out in college because I had to, because they paid me to. But I gained a lot of weight. And I always had some confidence, but my confidence was just shot. It wasn't where it needed to be. So then I finally started to go to the gym, started working out. I'm eating a lot better, and I lost a lot of weight. And during that process, I started to discover some of my passions, which is storytelling. Along the line, I also discovered podcasts. I loved listening to podcasts. And one day when I was at the gym, I'm working out. Now this is about 3 months, 4 months in. I'm starting to lose the weight, getting my strength back, my confidence, my range of motion. Everything is going really well. And I was like, wow, like this is cool. And then finally, there's these boxes that you have at the gym. And the trainer would all of a sudden say, hey, Kito, I want you to get on the box. I was like, get on the box? So maybe I was supposed to be doing push-ups. Now she wanted me to put my feet on the box to make it harder, to expand my range of motion, to make myself challenge myself a little bit more. And I was like, get on the box. I like that. So I'd always liked podcasts. I love listening to stories. So now I started looking for podcasts. I realized all these podcasts that I have, they're cool, but they're always interviewing athletes. They're always interviewing actors, billionaire owners, people that I and most people just can't relate to. I was like, I want to start a podcast. I can do a podcast. And I decided to launch my podcast called Get On the Box, Tell Your Story. And I tell you, that's my first lesson I want to share to you is you just have to get started, right? You can't, so let me back up a little bit. So I thought about the title. Actually, I didn't think about the title. I had another title. It was called Boss, Be of Some Service. That lasted for about 2 episodes. I was like, that's not it. And I remember, though, it was like the summer. I had been drinking a little bit. I wasn't drunk or anything, but I was feeling good. And I was just like, all right, Kito, you keep talking about launching this podcast. You keep researching. You keep trying to tweak everything. It's like, you just got to start. So I took out my phone and just hit record and recorded myself rambling for 10 minutes long. I uploaded it, and boom, Boss, the podcast was launched. And so I just want to encourage you, the first, thing I want to share is like, just get started, right? Get started. And now I've done, 70 episodes, something like that. I changed the title. I changed the music. Everything's a lot better with the podcast. And I always tell people that you can't perfect a process that you never start. You cannot perfect a process that you never start. So I just want to encourage you just to get started. Get started. So now, you may be wondering, okay, so tell my story. How do I tell my story? What does that look like? And I always, when I talk with people or work with people, I try to tell them that, the number one thing you need to figure out when it comes to telling your story is you have to allow yourself, A, to be vulnerable, but then B, you have to also figure out what makes my story interesting. And the number one thing you have to do is you have to stop thinking that your story isn't worth being told, that your experiences aren't worth, sharing, because your stories are. Maybe you're a single mother. Maybe you battled addiction. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe, you lost a loved one. Whatever the case may be, it's your pain, it's those struggles that you went through that allows you now to tell your story and solve the problems of other people. So along the line, as you're telling your story, really embrace your pain that you've gone through in your life, because that pain allows you now to identify problems that other people may have. And then once you're able to solve the problems of other people, I like to say you get to monetize your problems. you monetize your problems. And I'm not saying this is all about money, but you want to monetize your problems. So the bigger the problems you can solve, the more money you can make, all right? But in order for you to get to that point, you have to also now ask yourself, what do I know more than anybody else? What do I know more than anybody else? And if you can't answer that question, well then I'll just tell you that you have not found your passion. Because even if you don't know, you don't have to be an expert, but your passion will make you seek answers. It'll make you you'll discover, how to solve the problem. You'll want to become an expert. I'm not going to have anybody raise their hands, but I'll tell you right now, if you go to work and you're not passionate about your work and you're given an assignment, it's like pulling your teeth to go search for that answer because you're not passionate about what you're doing. But as soon as you find that passion, you'll stay up all night long figuring that out, right? So ask yourself, what problems can I solve? And also, what do I know more than anybody else? And I'll just say is the place to start from with yourself is that you do have a PhD in me. You have a PhD in me. So you take all those life experiences that you have and you say, being a mother makes me X. Being a father makes me X. Being a fired employee makes me Y, right? Being a college athlete helps me do this. Being a teacher, managing a 5-year-old, being married to a husband that has all kinds of ideas helps me do what? Those problems help you solve, those experiences allow you to solve the problems of other people. But I saved this last part for the very end because I think this is the most important thing. We talked about problems and solving them. We talked about telling your story. But at the end of the day, you're not going to tell your story if you don't have a why. You have to attach a why to it. And I'll just tell you on this, in case you don't know, money cannot be the reason why you do what you do, right? Money cannot be, because money fades. You're gonna have a lot of ups and downs along the way, and if you're making it just about money, as soon as you hit a roadblock, you will quit. You'll say, it's not worth it. The time is off. I'll get it next time. But when you attach a why to everything that you do, you're going to find the answers. You're going to persevere. You're going to just be your best version of yourself. So I just want to encourage you to really figure that out. Like, what is my why? What am I doing this for? Who's counting on me? I have a daughter who's counting on me, right? Wife counting on me. So I'm not motivated by money, but I'm motivated by the fact that I want to give my daughter options. I want her to be able to say, hey, Mom, Daddy, I want to go to this school. Okay, where do you want to go? And not worried about somebody telling us how much money they're going to give us. Like, no, we'll cut the check if that's what it takes. I hope I don't have to, Melina. But if that's the case, I will, right? I want to be able to provide, a certain lifestyle for my family and give us, experiences. Right? So you don't have to be motivated by money, but you have to attach a purpose. And it can't be about money, but it also can't just be about you. Because it's easy to quit on you, quite frankly. A lot of people have already quit on themselves a long time ago. But when you make it about somebody else, it's very hard for you to just throw in a towel because you know that person is counting on you. So I don't know how much time I have left, but the last thing I do want to talk about, because again, I can answer questions afterwards as far as how you go about like the strategy, and again, whether it's starting a blog, whether it's starting a podcast, whether it's starting your own business, having a side hustle. There's a lot of different things we can talk about, in the time together. But the last thing I just want to really share with you is the why people don't tell their stories. So I already talked about it. I think the first one is that they don't believe they have a story to tell. I think we've knocked that out. But the second one is they are afraid of failure. They're afraid of failure. And I don't know why this is the case, and I'm not blaming it. Adults, I'm an adult now, but I'm not going to blame adults. I'm not going to blame the teachers or the parents, but I will respectfully say that a lot of times what ends up happening is that it's the adults who don't reach the heights that they want to reach. And now, as a result, they want their child to play it safe. Don't do that because this will happen. Oh, don't. And I just want to encourage you, just as a parent, here is just to share with you all, is teach your children that it's okay to fail, right? And now reteach yourself that it's okay to fail, right? Don't be afraid to fail. So what? You mess up. My first podcast, it was trash. It was so bad. It was the worst production. Just do a search, get on the box, and then listen to episode 1. I'm like, oh my goodness, it was terrible. But I started, right? So don't be afraid to fail. And I'll just close this out with one of my guests, Darren K. Roberts. He was an awesome guest, and he went to Harvard Law. And going into his third year, he decided he wanted to be an NFL coach. An NFL coach. And I was like, wow, you want to be an NFL coach? He's like, yes. I said, what'd you do? I was like, well, first I had to finish out I had to finish it out. I wasn't going to not, finish my law degree. So he did finish, at Harvard Law, but he wrote a letter to 32 NFL teams. Now, mind you, we had no experience, saying he wanted to be a coach. 31 of them said no to him. And then finally, the Kansas City Chiefs said yes as an unpaid internship. Herm Edwards, who was the head coach at the time, he let him do it. And I just remember asking him, I was like, Darren, 31 teams said no. How did you keep going? And this is what I want to, share with you is he says, well, listen, Kito, the way I see it is a no already. You're already starting from a place of no. Whether you do it or not, whether you ask or not, whether you try it or not, it's a no. So you might as well go out and find out if you can turn that into a yes. So that's what the fear about. Don't become, obsessed with and afraid of failure. Believe that you have a story to tell. Believe that you are worthy to share it. But most importantly, and this is what I'll leave you with, you don't tell your story for you. This is the key. This is the irony of all of it. You don't tell your story for you. You don't tell your story to to pad your ego, to make all this money. You tell your story to bless others, to serve others. There's somebody in this world, and I want you to think big. Not your coworker, even though not your friend or your neighbor. There's somebody in this world that is counting on you, that needs you, that would be disappointed in you if you don't tell their story. They need to hear your story. So that's all I have. That's my time. I thank you for it, and I hope this has inspired you to get on the box and tell your story.